Hey, welcome to the Midships YouTube channel. I'm your Captain Corey. Today, we have some crazy news coming out from Carnival Cruise Line that is going to make a lot of people miss their cruise. That's right. We're going to see hundreds, if not thousands, of cancellations because of the news that came from Carnival Cruise Lines last night. We're also going to talk about Manhattan. The first cruises are slated to leave from there soon. Also, we'll take an inside look at the Oasis of the Seas test cruise. Also, Royal Caribbean has denied almost 20 people from boarding for being late to the cruise dock because of a delay in COVID testing. But before we get started in the news, don't forget we currently have a giveaway going on. If you would like to win these towel bands and these cruise lanyards, simply go down to the description below and click the giveaway link. Watch the video that tells you how you can get entered to win. The drawing will be held on Wednesday, the 25th of August at noon Eastern. So you only have about 2 days left to get entered to this. And if you don't win this one, we have more prizes coming up over the next few weeks. So definitely get entered to win. Now, if you'd rather just not wait on these and you would like to purchase them yourself, I do have links in the description to Amazon where you can purchase these. It does not cost you any more if you click the links, but it will help the channel. So we would appreciate if you would use those if you're going to buy them. Now, before we get started with the news, we have to cover something that we here at Midships have mentioned for the last couple weeks, and that is Bacon Gate. That's right. We've got this tweet from Carnival Cruise Lines. Y'all know we're working on the bacon shortage. In the meantime, enjoy the sight of sizzling bacon. So it looks like Carnival knows that us carnivores want our bacon. So it looks like they're working hard to bring that bacon back. Now, let's hop into the huge news that broke late last night. From Cruise Hive, Carnival Cruise Line changes protocols due to destination requirements. Now, these requirements have been put in place by the Bahamian government. That's the Bahamas. And the new protocols say that you cannot travel to a port in the Bahamas if you have people on board that are unvaccinated on the cruise. So cruise lines have been sort of changing to work with this requirement left and right. We've already seen cruise lines like Royal Caribbean and Celebrity change their tune to fit more in line with these new protocols. And last night, news broke that Carnival has done the same thing. So let's quickly read this article, and then I'm going to read you the email that came out from Christine Duffy from Carnival Cruise Line. She's the president of the line. So, Cruise Hive by Emery Thacker. On Sunday evening, the cruise line announced an update to its Have Fun, Be Safe protocols. If you would like to read these protocols in their entirety, they will be linked down below in the description, as well as all of the reference articles used in today's episode. Carnival Cruise Line is currently sailing with at least 95% of guests fully vaccinated. As per guidelines from the US CDC, the 5% unvaccinated are guests that received an exemption to cruise, including those under 12 years old and certain adults who are unable to get vaccinated. Now, that exemption is going to become very important as we move on in this story because people who are cruising between September and the end of October have already received emails that their exemption was accepted. And last night, they just received an email letting them know that maybe that exemption actually isn't going to work out for them, especially if they don't fall into some of the categories that the Bahamas are accepting to cruise without vaccine. So let's read on. The cruise line is making a small adjustment starting on August 28th that impacts a small number of guests within that 5%. Carnival Cruise Line says, only children under 12 and adults with medical conditions that prohibit their vaccination are exempt from the vaccine requirements to sail. Guests will have to bring the relevant documentation during check-in, including a birth certificate or passport for those under 12 and a letter from a medical provider stating why guests could not be vaccinated. This update applies to all sailings from the Atlantic and Gulf home ports and will remain in place through all sailings through the end of October of 2021. So let's talk about who this new protocol and policy from Carnival Cruise Line is going to affect. So as we read earlier, Carnival had an exemption in place for about 5% of the ship's population to be unvaccinated. This includes adults who have just simply chosen to not be vaccinated. And so those people who have already received their exemption have now been notified that that exemption is no more. So if you are an adult over 12 years old and you have no medical reason that you cannot receive a vaccine, you are now canceled. If you're cruising between August 28th and October 31st, and probably through the end of the year. That's not confirmed, but you can expect these things to just keep rolling and rolling, as pretty much everything with COVID seems to do. So let's read the email that went out last night from Carnival CEO Christine Duffy. Dear Carnival guest, you are receiving this letter because you have either been approved or applied for a vaccine exemption on a ship departing from an Atlantic or Gulf home port, i.e. Florida, Texas, or Maryland. As you may be aware, the requirements for cruise ships to enter ports outside the U.S. continue to evolve, and Carnival Cruise Line must operate in full compliance with these regulations. Most recently, the government of the Bahamas has announced that effective September 3rd, cruise lines calling to any port in the Bahamas must be able to confirm that all guests 12 and older are fully vaccinated, with exemptions only for those with a medical condition that prohibits vaccination. Other destinations in the Caribbean, normally included on our itineraries, have implemented similar limitations. Given the number of itineraries that include multiple destinations throughout the Caribbean, and in particular the Bahamas, and the need for us from time to time to adjust itineraries due to medical, technical, or weather emergencies, we will now operate all sailings under this new requirement. While we believe these are temporary measures, this policy may continue for some period of time. And so what she's talking about there with the itinerary changes is maybe ports are closed due to outbreaks. Maybe Carnival chooses not to go to certain ports because we have high COVID cases. We're in peak hurricane season, so maybe we have a weather event or a hurricane that will affect some ports that a ship is supposed to call at. And so now they'll have to adjust their itinerary to call somewhere else. So basically what Carnival is doing here is allowing themselves more flexibility, because if they just say, hey, we're not going to do any ports that require vaccines, then they sort of just have to cruise to Mexico, who could very quickly do the same thing and follow suit. And if we have another hurricane or tropical storm that heads down to Mexico, then you have no ports to go to. And so what are you going to do? Just sail around to nowhere? That's not something that anybody really wants to do. So that's sort of the explanation here. Let's jump back into this memo released by Christine Duffy, the CEO of Carnival Cruise Lines. This means that effective with embarkations on or after August 28th from all U.S., Atlantic, and Gulf home ports, our protocols for exemptions must change. The small number of vaccine exemptions previously issued for upcoming sailings will be limited only to children under 12 and those with medical conditions that do not allow them to be vaccinated. The guest birth certificate or passport for children, or a letter from a medical provider stating why they cannot be vaccinated for medical reasons, must be presented at check-in, along with the exemption approval letter from Carnival. Unfortunately, all other vaccine exemptions previously granted for upcoming sailings cannot be fulfilled due to these new limitations. So there you go. If you had previously received that exemption from Carnival just because you didn't want to get a vaccine, but you still wanted to cruise, like I'm sure a lot of people, you're out of luck now. So unfortunately, your cruise has been canceled. So this is really bad news for hundreds or probably thousands of cruisers who now will not be able to cruise. Now you may be wondering, how do I know if my cruise is still on? Well, I'm going to give you a little tip. On Carnival's website, there is a page, and this will be linked in the description below. While you're down there, could you please do us a huge favor, subscribe to our channel and give us a thumbs up on this video. We are just so thankful to all the new subscribers that we've been bringing into the Midships family over the last couple of days and weeks. And I tell you what, the comment section has been blowing up with just awesome people posting wonderful comments and great discourse and discussions. Keep them coming. We appreciate you guys so much, and we see and read all of the comments on our videos. So this is Carnival's Check the Status of My Sailing page. So all you have to do to use this tool is enter the date on which your cruise is set to depart, and then you'll use this drop-down list to pick the cruise ship you're on, the port you're departing from, and then how long your cruise is, and just hit Check My Sailing, and right down here it will tell you if you are canceled or you're still good to go. So right now, my Mardi Gras cruise in December has not been canceled. So excellent news. Midships is still getting on the Mardi Gras Now let's look at an article from Cruise Critic about an Oasis-class ship that has just departed on her test sailing from Bayonne, New Jersey. Of course, we're talking about Oasis of the Seas from Cruise Critic's Jeff Bogle, live from Oasis of the Seas test cruise. Oasis is back in New York. This is a test, only a test. Last night, Royal Caribbean's Oasis of the Seas sailed away from Bayonne, New Jersey, with a manifest composed of several hundred lucky volunteers, each of whom won a double occupancy cabin for themselves and a +1 during last month's Volunteers of the Seas lottery. If you were a Midships subscriber, you knew about the Volunteers of the Sea lottery. You knew a day in advance how you could enter to win this drawing and be a Volunteer of the Seas. This is the kind of content we deliver to you every single day. This is why you should be subscribed. I'll quit my ranting, get back to this article. Also on board were a smattering of equally fortunate journalists and eager and dedicated crew ready to get back to work and out to sea. This 6-day simulated cruise, or non-revenue test cruise, features 2 days at sea on either side of a perfect day at Coco Cay, the cruise line's private island. Not even Hurricane Henry's winds and rain could steer this cruise off her course. So we've got Oasis of the Seas currently on her 6-night test cruise heading down to the Bahamas to Perfect Day at Coco Cay. Once she returns, she'll resume her revenue-based sailings beginning on September the 5th. Congratulations to all my Northeast cruisers who now can get back out on the seas on a beautiful Oasis-class ship. Let's continue talking about Royal Caribbean, because in the last few days, they've received some negative stories on the internet about how they've been denying passengers boarding for being a few minutes late because they could not figure out what in the heck the company's testing protocols were. So let's read an article from Fox 13, Salt Lake City. This is by John Franchi. Utah couple denied cruise ship boarding despite negative COVID-19 tests and vaccination. Galveston, Texas. A Utah couple's 44th wedding anniversary celebration ended before it had a chance to get started. Myra and Brian Gurr decided to commemorate their special day by taking a Caribbean cruise. Vaccinated against COVID-19, they were told in late July they would not need a negative COVID test to board the Royal Caribbean's Independence of the Seas. On August 13th, just 2 days before their cruise was set to depart, the Gurrs received an email from the cruise line indicating they would now need to provide a negative test prior to embarkation. And Myra Gurr says, "We just got all this mixed information from the cruise line. It was basically a nightmare after that." The night they received this email, the couple took a COVID test at a local pharmacy. They also purchased and administered take-home antigen tests as a backup. The very next day, on August 14th, they flew to Houston, Texas. The test results from the pharmacy did not come back in time before the cruise set sail, and security at the port in Galveston would not accept the take-home test results. We have another quote from Brian Gurr. "With the short amount of time we were given, we did everything we possibly could. We took the one test at Walgreens. We did the self-test at home. In all, we ended up taking 3 tests, all of them negative, but the timing did not work out." So now we're going to read more about this third test and why the Gurmans missed this cruise. And then I want to hear your opinion on, do you think the cruise line cracked down a little too hard and should maybe consider being a little more lenient or helping people out in this type of situation? So on August 15th, which is departure day for the Gurmans cruise, along with several other passengers who were not allowed to board, the Gurmans rushed to an urgent care near the port to take their third test. That result was negative for the virus. However, when they returned to the dock, they learned the ship, Royal Caribbean, had closed its doors 15 minutes earlier and they would not be allowed to board. From the Gurmans, "We got back at 4:30. They told us they shut the doors at 4:15. There were at least 20 other people from 4 different families that were shut out just the way we were." The story goes on to say the Gurmans watched the ship sail away from port with their luggage on board. So this is a case of the cruise line changing things last minute, literally 48 hours before departure, and just leaving people out to dry. If you're from Royal Caribbean and you are listening, this is definitely something that needs to be fixed and taken care of. If you're going to change policies and procedures this last minute before cruises board, it is on the cruise company to provide testing procedures at the port for your passengers. Now, let's talk about Manhattan. Again, we're going up to the Northeast. We've been spending a lot of time talking about New York these last few days. So in an article from Spectrum News 1 New York, cruise ships expected to return to Manhattan in late September. The city's Economic Development Corporation said it is working with Norwegian and Crystal Cruise Lines to start sailing ships from the west side by the end of September. The ships will dock at Pier 88 and Pier 90. Everyone on board must be fully vaccinated. Cruise ships have not been allowed to dock in the city since the pandemic hit in March of last year. The EDC also runs the Brooklyn Cruise Terminal in Red Hook, but it's not clear when that dock may reopen. So as COVID protocols go in our country, New York has some of the strictest in place. And so it's actually quite surprising to see this cruise port getting the green light to open. I would be very suspicious of booking cruises out of Manhattan for the next couple of months. I just don't see that being a viable option. Maybe I could be wrong about this, but just from what I've seen with all their vaccine mandates and a lot of the heavy restrictions going on up in New York right now, you know, it's not that they don't work. It's not that things like that aren't effective, but it's also just really hard on everyday people who are just trying to kind of go about their life or run a business or take a vacation. It's things like that that cause me to take a pause and just wonder if maybe you'd be better off booking your cruise out of New Jersey for the time being, where maybe the restrictions are just a little bit looser. So that's going to do it for today's episode of Midships. Again, don't forget to enter to win our giveaway. The link is down in the description below. Until next time, we'll see you at the Midships.